Okay, so, you're leading a business and you're trying to grow and scale. And I think one of the things that you probably run into pretty quickly is how do you handle all this content that you need to create to run your business? I mean, it's one thing to, just put up a website. But when you're talking about a larger organization, you've got so much content to deal with.
Yeah.
For all the different parts of the business.
So true.
So that's kind of what we're diving into today. We're looking at enterprise content management and, how businesses grapple with all of that. And specifically, we're going to be exploring, if building a custom content management system, CMS, could actually be a better way to go than relying on, one of those SaaS platforms, the kind of off-the-shelf solutions that are out there.
Right.
And we've been looking at some material that really digs into this whole idea of custom CMS solutions for enterprises and really highlights, where those kind of more generic systems can sometimes fall short.
Yeah.
When you have the really complex demands of a larger business.
Exactly.
So I guess the big question we're tackling today is it really worth it to invest in a custom CMS?
Right.
Given all these challenges that larger organizations face. So let's jump in. And one thing that really stood out to me from the beginning was this idea that, we're not just talking about website copy anymore. We're talking about the whole universe of content that an enterprise has to manage.
Absolutely.
It's like internal documents, training materials, customer support stuff. It's a huge landscape.
It is. And I think that is at the heart of the problem.
Yeah.
The sheer volume, the variety of content that needs to be managed effectively.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that happens is you end up with all this content scattered across different platforms, different teams using different tools. And it just becomes this mess of like, where is everything?
Oh, absolutely. You get these silos of information.
Right.
And it becomes almost impossible to maintain any kind of consistency or a single source of truth for your content.
Yeah. And it makes it really hard to actually use the content effectively.
Exactly. Employees waste time searching for information. They don't know if they're looking at the most up-to-date version.
Right.
It just hinders productivity across the board.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think the initial appeal of a SaaS CMS is pretty clear, right? You can get up and running quickly.
Right.
You don't have to worry about managing servers and all the technical infrastructure.
Exactly.
It seems really straightforward at first.
It does. And for many smaller businesses or, organizations with fairly basic content needs,
right,
can be a perfectly good solution.
Yeah.
Those pre-built templates and structures, they let you get a website or a content portal up and running.
Right.
Without a lot of hassle.
But, as a business grows and things get more complex, I feel like that initial simplicity can start to feel like a straitjacket.
Oh, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there.
What seemed convenient in the beginning can really start to limit you.
Exactly. And that's where the limitations of those SaaS platforms really start to show.
Yeah.
Especially for larger enterprises.
Yeah.
Those templates that seemed so helpful at first, they might not allow you to create those unique, customized experiences that your brand needs, to stand out.
Right. And you're kind of stuck with their design choices.
Exactly. You're operating within the confines of their system. So the customization options are often pretty limited.
Yeah. And I think the cost can be a real issue too.
Right.
It often seems affordable at first, but then you add more users, you have more content, and suddenly those monthly fees can really balloon.
That's a key point. Many SaaS platforms, they base their pricing on how many users you have or how much content you're managing. So as your business grows, those costs can become quite significant and they're recurring.
Right. You're paying them every single month.
Every month. And, it's not always easy to negotiate better rates.
Yeah. Especially when you're already locked into their system. Yeah. And then there's the whole integration nightmare.
Right.
When you think about a larger company, they've got all these systems in place.
CRM, ERP.
Yeah. All these different tools.
Marketing automation.
And trying to make a generic CMS play nicely with all of those can be a real headache.
It can be a nightmare. You end up with data silos.
Right.
Information stuck in different systems.
Yeah.
And it just creates inefficiencies.
People have to manually transfer data or come up with these workarounds?
Exactly. And, the bigger problem is you don't get a unified view of your business.
Right. You can't see the whole picture.
We're missing out on valuable insights.
Yeah. And all of this gets even more complicated when you start thinking about security and compliance, especially for larger companies that are dealing with sensitive data.
Absolutely.
You're essentially handing over control to a third party when you use a SaaS solution.
you don't have the same level of control over your data.
Right.
And that can be a real concern, particularly for businesses in highly regulated industries.
Yeah, you don't necessarily know where your data is stored.
Right.
Or what security measures are in place.
And you don't have the same kind of direct control over data governance.
Right. So it sounds like as a company grows, that initial convenience of a SaaS CMS can actually become a real obstacle to further growth.
Can you reach a point where you're spending more time and resources trying to work around the limitations of the platform than you are actually using it to achieve your business goals?
So it actually becomes a hindrance.
In a way.
Instead of a helper.
You want your CMS to enable your growth, not hold it back.
Okay, so let's flip this around and look at the other side. What does a custom CMS offer a larger organization?
Well, it offers a level of flexibility and control that you just don't get with a generic SaaS platform.
Okay.
It's designed specifically for your business, your workflows.
So you're not trying to squeeze your business into their predefined box.
Exactly. And that can make a huge difference in terms of efficiency.
Yeah. And I think security is a big factor too, right?
Absolutely. With a custom solution, you have complete control over your data. You can implement the exact security measures you need.
So you can ensure that you're meeting all the regulatory requirements.
Precisely. And you can tailor your access controls to fit your organization's structure.
So different teams and individuals can have the appropriate level of access.
Exactly. And, another major advantage is the ability to integrate seamlessly with your other business systems.
Right.
So you eliminate those data silos.
It all works together.
Exactly. You get a unified view of your data.
That's huge, and it can really streamline your operations.
It can, and it allows you to automate a lot of tasks.
Right.
Which frees up your team to focus on more strategic work.
And it's not just about efficiency either.
Right.
A custom CMS can help you create much more personalized and engaging experiences for your customers.
That's right, because you have complete control over the design and functionality. You can tailor it to the specific needs of your audience.
And you can make it much easier for them to find the information they need.
Absolutely. You can build in features like advanced search capabilities and personalized recommendations.
And I think the source material also talked about the importance of scalability. A custom system is built to grow with your business.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about hitting those limitations that you often encounter with SaaS platforms.
So it's a much more future-proof solution.
It is. You're making a long-term investment in your content infrastructure.
So let's bring this back to some of those specific challenges we talked about earlier.
Right.
If you're a company that's dealing with a huge volume of content, and you need to distribute it across all these different channels. Different websites, mobile apps, internal portals. A custom CMS can really help you manage that whole process.
Absolutely. It streamlines the workflow from creation to publication. And it ensures consistency across all your channels.
And if security and compliance are your top priorities, a custom CMS gives you that granular control.
You can build in robust security protocols and detailed audit trails.
So you have a complete record of who accessed what and when.
Exactly, which is essential for compliance.
And if you're a company that relies on a whole suite of different software tools, CRM, ERP analytics platforms, a custom CMS can be seamlessly integrated with all of those.
It eliminates those data silos and gives you a much more holistic view of your business.
So one of the things that came up in the material we were looking at was this company called Deventure.
Yes.
And they seem to be positioning themselves not just as a software developer, but as a strategic partner for businesses that are going through this digital transformation process.
That's right. They emphasize their understanding of the business challenges that enterprises face.
So they're not just trying to sell you a piece of software.
Exactly. They're taking a more consultative approach to really understand your needs.
So it's about finding the right solution for your specific business.
Precisely. And they have a strong track record of delivering successful projects for enterprises.
And it sounds like they offer end-to-end service.
They do, from the initial planning and design all the way through to implementation and support.
So they're with you every step of the way.
Exactly. And their goal is to deliver a solution that's future-proof.
That's important.
It is, you want a system that can grow and evolve with your business.
So to sum up, we started by talking about the challenges that businesses face when it comes to managing content.
The volume, the variety.
And how those SaaS platforms, while they seem appealing at first, can actually create a lot of limitations.
They can, especially for larger organizations.
Yeah, and then we looked at the advantages of a custom-built CMS.
Flexibility,
or
control,
the integration capabilities,
the scalability,
and how it can really help you achieve your business goals.
And ultimately drive growth.
So for you, the listener, as you're thinking about your own content management strategy, it might be worth asking yourself, is your current approach really serving you well?
Right.
Or could you benefit from a more tailored solution? Something that's specifically designed for your needs.
A solution that empowers you to take control of your content.
And achieve your full potential.
Exactly.
So that's something.
Food for thought.
Thanks for joining us today.
It's been a pleasure.